started, we need to turn this room over at 6:30 to the Economic Development Commission. So I'm calling to order a special meeting of Exeter Select Board for May 24th, 2016. And I have a short statement. We are here tonight to consider one matter. That matter is, should Exeter Select Board enter into settlement discussions with Riverwoods? Regarding this question, let me speak first, and then each Select Board member will be allowed 2 minutes to speak to the question of entering into settlement discussions. In my mind, the critical issue in this matter relates to correct classification of a current use property. It is most definitely not an issue of comparable value. Given the discovery of a mistake in classification by our assessing office, it makes sense in my mind to settle this matter in good faith. Let me go further by saying that if this matter were not related to correct classification of a current use property, I would be adamantly opposed to considering a settlement. Let me repeat, it is only because this is a current use classification issue and not a comparable value issue that I am in favor of moving forward with a settlement discussion. Now let's hear from the other members of the Select Board. I will ask you to each follow my example and confine your remarks to 2 minutes. Selectwoman Sermon, would you lead off?
Thank you, Chairman. I have questions, actually, other than just a prepared statement. My concern is, but I will address the way you presented it. The word mistake would be the same for any taxpayer getting a property bill that, whether it's comparable or current use, they would be getting a bill that was incorrect because it was too high or too low, usually too high. So they are afforded the ability to file a tax abatement with the town. When they get a bill, it seems too high, same as it would have been with current use. Riverwoods would have received a bill, it would have been extremely high. Somebody should have said, this isn't right. Somebody must have made a mistake, and they would have exercised their option the same as any property owner in the town, and they would file for an abatement. And that's the current procedure. So part of my concerns have to do with, we would be changing the procedure. We'd be changing a complete policy if we enter into this. We'd also be potentially creating a precedent if we ultimately decide to do something other than deny it. So those are some of my concerns. I think it's splitting hairs to make it a difference between whether it's a comparable issue or a current use issue. At the end of the day, it was a tax bill that wasn't followed through on in terms of its abatement ability, and therefore Riverwoods paid more than they probably should have paid. But that's no different than many of our property owners here who pay more than they should have paid if they haven't filed through the abatement process. I'd like to reserve the right to speak again, but move on.
I appreciate you confining your remarks right now to 2 minutes. Selectwoman Belanger.
Well, I don't have a prepared statement because I didn't realize that we were going to have the time to do this. But under the circumstances, I don't want to say mutual mistake, but there was an error on both parts from what I understand. And I also, setting a precedent seems to have come up a few times, and I really don't believe it would set a precedent whatever the outcome of this is. I think it's within our purview to be able to listen and reach a mutual acceptable agreement if we so choose. That is my statement.
Great, thanks. Selectman Clement. Starting with you and coming back.
First of all, there's no such thing as a settlement hearing. I don't know what we're talking about. I've never heard of a settlement hearing. You have we have a request for abatements to come before the Board of Selectmen, then we act on one way or the other. That's all I'm going to talk about, is the abatement request.
Selectwoman Gill.
I'll have to say my thoughts lie in a similar line as yours and Ms. Sermon's, in that there is a mistake. Somebody should have caught it sooner, but it was caught. And again also, I also feel that there is a difference between an assessment or evaluation of comparable properties, and what this is, which is a different use of a property that they are defined as a different use than what it should have been when doing the calculations for an assessment.
So let me ask you, each of you this, are you in favor of a settlement, of having a discussion about a settlement? Selectman Clement?
Oh,
No, thank you. Selectman Lee.
Yes.
Yes. I am in favor of any settlement discussions. Selectwoman Belanger?
Yes.
Selectwoman Sermon?
No?
Okay, so we have 3 yeses and 2 nos, and that means that the majority says we're going to enter into settlement discussions. I think the next step is for us to figure out how that's going to happen. And I've been thinking about that, and I think I would like to charge you, Mr. Lassard, to enter into settlement discussions with the representative from Riverwoods or Riverwoods itself. And then bring...
point of order. Only the Board of Selectmen can grant an abatement for a
Let me
taxes.
finish.
I've asked for a point of order. I'm making a point of order. Only the Board of Selectmen have the authority to do that. We cannot charge the assessor to go into a settlement agreement or discussion with the plaintiff.
My plan is to ask the assessor to come up with the shape and amount of a settlement, and the board will grant it. It'll be up to the board to grant it. Does that answer your point of order?
No, point of order is no, we cannot do that.
I understand.
There
that
is
you-
no justification under the law for that to happen. Either we follow the statutes or we do not.
Tell you what, let's do it this way. I'm going to make a motion. I'm going to make a motion that this board charge our town assessor, Mr. Lassard, with entering into settlement negotiations with Riverwoods and/or its representatives. Could I have a second for that?
Can I second the discussion?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I have a question.
We are now going to discuss the motion that is also seconded. Yes.
If this were an individual, would we be handling it this way? One of several questions I have.
Well, if this were an individual, Mr. Lassard would do the comparables and the calculations and the recommendations. And that's what we're going to do.
Yeah, but that's already done.
Do you have
The other,
any-
yes. I also want to bring up the fact that in the letter that we all looked at, council basically told us we did not have to do any of this, that we should basically deny it. They supported the fact that there was no grounds for us to even grant this, or to even be going as far as we've gone. I think we listen to council quite often, so I don't know why this time we're taking exception to council saying we shouldn't even be having this conversation. We should have just denied it.
Excuse me, I'm not sure that's true. From what I've heard relating council's.
Point of
letter-
order, there's a motion on the floor.
First of all, there's no point of order for anyone that's not on this board, Mr. Ferraro, so please hold up.
My understanding of the letter you got from council said more than that. It said you didn't have to. It didn't say you can't.
I agree, but I'm
But you're
saying,
not relating the whole. you're
well,
not
they
relating-
all have the letter.
Well, you
I'm
shouldn't
only
be saying
restating what's
the whole
already
thing.
been told.
you didn't
I'll
have
read it to you.
Well, I think that would be good.
If you consider these factors alone, all right, here we go. The
Ms.
legality,
Sermon?
let me just have a
No,
minute,
just-
Mr.
just hold-
Shafi. Could
Just
you
hold
just
up for a
give me a
second.
minute?
Do you really want to share?
Yes, I do.
Our council's advice with,
Well, he already knows it.
I only know what you told us last
I
time.
don't think he does. He doesn't know a chapter and verse, so I would hold up. I would hold up.
Yeah, I'm not into the cloak and
Everybody
dagger
should
of
hold
this,
up.
okay?
There's no cloak and there's no
It
dagger.
is cloak and dagger.
We're
There's nothing
possibly-
transparent, there's nothing transparent about this entire meeting.
We're possibly going to enter into negotiations, and do you really
You are
want
the
to
only one,
disclose?
the three of you are the only ones who want to do this negotiation. Two of us are trying to follow the policy and procedures that have been followed correctly, and that would be voting on this as a regular abatement, as we do week after week, year after year. And to make this into something completely different, that's the part that isn't transparent.
Okay, I think it is different, and I've stated that in my opinion.
Well, that's your opinion, as we have.
I'm going to move to Ms. Belanger. Do you have any comments on the motion?
Well, I do. One of the things of the motion was asking that he look into it and make a recommendation. The end part, I think, that might be missing is that it would then come to the board for consideration. The other thing I kind of need to add, I feel I need to add in here, is that this is a unique situation, in my opinion. This is not a typical appeal, and it also is in another form of an appeal. What's the board that it's an appeal to? Sorry.
Bureau of Tax and Land Appeals.
Thank you. So yes, this is a unique situation, and I think it's within our purview to consider all possibilities on this, and it's not a typical appeal.
Hold up, we're gonna hear from everyone first.
The fact that it is in the Bureau of Tax and Land Appeals, which requires us to work on a settlement, is another reason why one proceeds.
Selectman comment.
I really don't want to say anything, but I want to ask for a point of clarification on this, what is before the BLTA. The appeal for abatement is for what years? What?
The appeal is for, abatement for 2014.
That's before
That's before the BTLA.
but the other requests for abatements are for years prior to that.
That's correct.
That's what we're acting on. So what we're acting on is not before the VLTA. I should make that clear. The VLTA appeal is for 2014. What we're talking about here, I believe, is for the years 2013, 12, 11, 10, and we go back to 4 years or 5 years. It's 5 years.
2009.
So please, let's be clear that this is different, this is separate from the VLTA. I am not here to discuss the VLTA, what's before them. That's another process. This is the process for years 2009 through 2013, a request for abatement.
If I may clarify.
Please.
There is an appeal to the Board of Tax and Land Appeals for 2014. And that, I believe, is what we're trying to discuss tonight, whether or not to resolve. The Board of Tax and Land Appeals always requests of the town, actually they order. They provide an order to the town saying, this appeal has been filed with us, we order you to enter into discussions to see if you can settle it. And if you can, great, and if you can't, we'll schedule a hearing. Due to the time frame of that order, both parties signed a paper for the Board of Tax and Land Appeals saying we didn't settle, so please schedule a hearing. So the next step is for them to schedule a hearing. I think the purpose of tonight is to try to determine whether or not we can resolve the 2014 hearing, the 2014 appeal, so that there will not be a hearing. And what is being brought in for mitigating purposes is the fact that there were previous over-assessments. Just to try to
Okay, no,
clarify specifically.
I look for clarification because it's confusion on my part, confusion on other people's part. Thank you.
If I may,
Please.
for people who don't figure out what's going on here. We believe the 2014 assessment of the undeveloped land, which was correctly classified as current use, was undeveloped land that wasn't current use, was over-assessed. So there's undeveloped land that's not in current use because we required, it was required for building density purposes, if that makes any sense. Not all Riverwoods open land is in current use because the amount the zoning requires for the number of dwelling units has to be not in current use. It's only the spare land or the land over and above what was needed for zoning purposes that's in current use.
And that's where the mistake was made.
And what happened, for the benefit of the people who don't know, what happened in 2009 was all the land was taken out of current use in the part that's called the boulders, instead of just the part that was required for zoning purposes. And that's what led, and it was not discovered until the 2014 tax bill came out. So that's the background.
Answer question.
If I may just add onto that real quickly, the comment was made that it was an extreme overage that should have been noticed, and I will say, we're asking for $37,000 over a 5-year time period, and over that time period, our organization paid $6.5 million. So it may seem extremely high, and it should have been noticed on our end. It's relative rounding in the grand scheme of how much money we paid on our tax bill. We assumed it would have been properly evaluated for the organization. I just want
I'm extremely clear.
to get that out there.
Ms. Stern.
That's a good question. When Riverwoods purchased the land to begin with, was it in current use when they purchased it?
Yes. Yes.
So, okay, that was,
The Beckett
So then
land, the land we're talking about belonged partly to the Holloway family and partly to the Beckett family, and it was in current
when
use.
you bought it. So then when they took the portion they took out,
Came out, we
Clear.
paid the current use tax.
paid the penalty on
We
that.
paid the
10%.
penalty on what came out, and what didn't come out was taxed as ordinary real estate rather than remain in current use, as it should have been, through a clerical error somewhere in the assessor's office.
Any other comments from the board? Sorry, Brian, not tonight.
They talked,
Nope.
and you're under motion, so everybody's entitled to talk.
Sorry.
Point of order,
You don't get a point of order, I'm sorry.
yes, we do.
Any further comment on this?
It's a violation of state law, Dan.
Yeah, it's a public meeting.
Okay, do a point of order.
Doesn't
As a
matter.
member of
Point
the
of
board.
order, point of order, I do believe we need to have the public speak because we let the other parties speak.
Okay. Charlie.
I don't care if they speak, but this is a negotiation between the board and the taxpayer, and it was billed as such. This is the third time we've been here for a negotiation between the board and the taxpayer. And I don't care if the public asks questions or speaks, but I don't think it's part of the process.
I didn't see it as part of the process. I got you. You want to draw the point? Thank you.
I mean,
Move the motion.
for the issue, for the people in the background, the issue was whether this should be in executive or private session or public session.
Sure.
The board decided public session.
Let it go.
So we're here.
For purposes of the attorney,
I have a
you
request from
can't
Mr.
have a
Ferraro.
non-public
Please,
session
Mr. Ferraro.
for this type of
Please, Mr.
activity.
Ferraro. I have a request from
To move the
Selectman
question.
Clement to move the motion.
Previous question.
Russ, can you read the motion?
Well, I was moving Selectwoman
Oh,
Gilman's
I'm sorry. I
question.
misunderstood.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
She's withdrawing that, so
No, I moved it.
she withdrew it.
Point of order, again, if
You-
the question has been moved, you have to take a vote on moving that question. For a vote.
So you're asking for a vote on whether the public will speak?
No, on her motion.
Which was to let the public speak?
Correct.
Okay. All those in favor of having the public speak tonight, say aye.
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 All those opposed?
No.
Is that what your point of order
Okay,
is?
no, my point of, no, please. I asked to move the question, so you now have to, the board has to vote whether to move the question or not. Mrs. Gilman's question, motion,
Okay.
not her motion, we're not voting on her motion, we're moving whether to move the question.
Okay, I understand I now understand what
Okay,
you're trying to do.
I'm trying to
And I want to be very
paraphrase Robert Rules of
respectful.
Order.
I want to be very respectful of the members of this board. So, Mr. Clement has asked to move the point of order, the question by Selectwoman Gilman, as I understand it.
Yes,
So those in favor of moving that, say aye.
aye.
And those against?
Nay.
And I say nay as well. So that ends that. Now, Russ, did you catch the motion that I put forward?
Are we going back to the original motion?
Yes, sir. I believe I made a motion to charge our town assessor with, I just want to make sure we have it right. I made a motion to charge our town assessor to enter into negotiations with Riverwoods to affect a settlement.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
or to enter into conversation to affect a settlement that the board will then vote on.
We in discussion.
Not right now, no, I'm trying to get clarification.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to, unless there's conversation about the motion, I'm going to call the question. Does anyone want to have any more conversation about the motion to ask the assessor to enter into conversation with Riverwoods?
Okay, well, I'm opposed to this, but
You will get a chance to vote no.
I know. But as you often do, you let everybody know how you're gonna vote, so I figured I'd let everybody know.
Okay.
But I also have a question, maybe it is off topic, but it goes back to what we just did, so I just wanna be clear. In this meeting, the public was not allowed to speak.
I reserve the speaking to the folks from Riverwoods and the board, that's correct.
Even though this is a publicly noticed meeting, the public can-
My main decision.
I just want it on the record.
Okay.
I disagree with that.
I understand. Okay, so all those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
Nay.
So the motion carries 3-2. Mr. Lassard, I am hoping to put this on the agenda 2 weeks from yesterday for the board to approve or deny. Can you meet that, please?
I believe I can.
I'm confident of Attorney Tucker's, his skills are legendary. So, if you would do that, that would be great. Could I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Is the public going to be able to speak in 2 weeks? Mr. Chairman?
And I got it.
You bet. You bet.
I did.
Yeah, I think that's a positive.
Oh, no, Julie did, I'm sorry, I did it. I motioned it, I'm sorry.
Travis stated justice.
No, I understand.
About
2014.